Yeah. So in many ways, actually is that, often we didn't have the awareness. What is going
Mhm.
on is that, like we have a perception that more or less coming from this self, this self perspective, things that, we have learned, you know, and then, is that, so we developed this self. So our life journey, it's more becoming, because actually whatever, everything that we interpret, everything that we see and how we interpret that, it just, we are living in a virtual perception world, and we are not actually living in a very objective world, we are living.
Mhm.
So the whole life journey, it really becomes of this kind of entanglement of this self and the natural way, the natural law, or the Tao.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, literally everything comes back to self-awareness. And self-awareness and being able to pick apart what thoughts you're having and what perspective you're having, and
Mhm.
being able to shift that is really what can enable people to be happier in this world.
Yes, right. So it really is that it's not any kind of a happening that is
Mhm.
as happier. It rather
Yeah.
how we interpret, you know.
Yeah, everything is internal. When it comes to happiness, everything is comes from inside of yourself. None of it really comes from outside of yourself, because you could have the best world possible outside of yourself and see it like it's horrible and you're not going to be happy, right?
Yeah.
So it is all perspective.
Yes, yes, exactly. Yeah. So that is why, of through an actual, way to exercise self-love becomes very, very important. It's not like saying that, okay, having a good time, going on vacation is not important, it's rather is that it becomes essential, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
Mhm. So how to say is that, yes, so very often is that, we're stuck in our self-looping, but we are not realizing it. That's the key, so that the self-awareness becomes so important. And I think that actually most of us just from the meaning of the words, and we kind of know, of course, I want to, self-love myself, but to actually able to do that often is that, we could have, like a victimhood.
Yeah, victim mentality.
Yeah, victim mentality, and then because of the victim mentality is that we often interpreting of other people, whatever they say, we interpret them as that, oh, they are not accepting me, but actually is that, it could be, has nothing to do with you,
Hmm.
whatever the other person say, that's from that person's perspective. It really
Right.
have anything to do with you, And then often, sometimes people, when they feel like they are being victimized, they get very angry,
Hmm. Right.
It really
And
hurts.
that's also when we come into like communication skills, because that that
Mhm.
can be a big thing, right? In close relationships, if you're feeling some sort of way, then can you just communicate rather than sort of spinning out, having some sort of thought loop and acting on that instead, right?
Yes.
'Cause we can't read people's minds.
Yeah. Yes, yes, exactly. When one of the things I think for somebody, let's say that, have this kind of uh, feeling like being victimized all the time, right? And is to actually begin to aware that cannot depend on of other people,
Yeah.
to fill us up,
Right. Yeah. I think the most important thing is if you find yourself like falling into that is to really um, push for some sort of independence, like grow your own life, your own self, um, find what makes you personally fulfilled because you're not going to find that anywhere else, right? That's going to all be within yourself.
Mhm.
So when you have a victim mentality, it's really easy to fall into the world is making circumstances for you, right? Or people around you are making circumstances for you. But that's actually not true. You're probably just avoiding making circumstances for yourself, you
Yes,
know?
exactly. Yeah. So what happened is that, because that you have a, feeling being victimized all the time, so that the happenings around you gets interpreted in this kind of, in a tinted lens, of your,
Mhm.
so then you see as if everything, that you are being victimized,
Mhm.
and also is that the interesting thing is that sometimes, it's like as if, your head is thinking, oh my goodness, why, that, this guy just never appreciated me, right? But actually is that, later on, maybe through practice, you developed a lot of self-confidence, your perspective will begin to change, and then you're going to see that actually, the other person is just doing whatever the other person is doing, it's
Right.
not purposely kind of say, particularly, it's really not a personal, not particularly, victimize you.
And I think an important thing here is also like how a lot of this victim mentality stems from things that happened in your early life, like in your childhood, how you were conditioned. You might just have like blocks that you have to work through in terms of it's almost like you've had this set perspective of viewing things that you need to break down.
Mm.
And then you can sort of see things for, in a much more objective way and not as it's not everything is like a judgment or like a, it's all very neutral actually.
Yeah, not a personal, not really personally, victimize you.
Hmm.
There's an emptiness behind it. So you mentioned
Right.
about, there's an energetic block. Can you elaborate
Yeah.
on that? Yeah.
Well, they can be any kind of blocks, mental, energetic. Um, Usually it really is just, either something happened, like it could be a one event, it could be perspective of your parents, it could be really anything you sort of picked up on
Mhm.
that shouldn't belong to you that somehow has become a part of your identity and a part of your perspective
Mhm.
and the way that you view everything. So then everything is filtering through that lens. So you can sort of break down that block when you're in a parasympathetic state, and you can change the neural pathway so that you can see more clearly, essentially. And that's really where meditation and things like that come into play.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think that that is typically the biggest thing as to why people have a victim mentality, just because they're unaware of all the blocks that have come up surrounding that. And that's usually why they can't build the circumstances that they actually want to build
Mhm.
because they're sort of trapped in that lens.
Mm. Yes, yes, yes. Mhm. Yeah.